Manchester United make the trip to Fulham live on Super Sunday, but will they be doing any late business in the transfer window? Ruben Amorim will hold his pre-match news conference later this afternoon. Let's join our reporter Daniel Khan, who'll be there for us. Daniel, it looks great in that brand new training ground. Will there be any brand new signings between now and the end of this transfer window?
Yeah, afternoon, James. I think there's been a lot of focus in terms of incomings. United have already done so much of their business in terms of those forward positions, bring in the likes of Benjamin Šeško, Matthias Cunha and Brian Mbeumo. But it seems the focus after that 1-0 defeat to Arsenal last week is very much on the goalkeeping section of the team, especially after Altay Bayındır conceded the goal he did against Ricardo Calafiori from that corner. And that has led to so much conversation over the last week around, do Manchester United need to reinforce in that goalkeeping position? Now, Ruben Amorim has been adamant he is happy with his three goalkeepers. Andre Onana was still out through not being match fit. And I think another week of training, he could be fit for Sunday, which will ask Ruben Amorim that very question on Sunday. But the focus for Manchester United, whether they need to bring in a goalkeeper or not, has to be on outgoings in the next week or so, week and a half or so, until the deadline. The likes of Rasmus Højlund, who has been heavily linked with Napoli after a former Manchester United striker, Romelu Lukaku, has picked up an injury in Italy. Højlund now looks perhaps more likely to go there, but Manchester United want an obligation to buy rather than an option. And then you also look at Alejandro Garnacho, still at the club with a week and a half to go. And there's a lot of conversation around, will Chelsea meet Manchester United's evaluation around Garnacho, their evaluation being around £50 million, James. And the question is, would United drop that with the deadline coming? The only counter I would say to that, James, and be very interested to hear what Rob has to say later, but for Manchester United and for the player, it's just as important for him as well, because just bear in mind, in the last week or so, he's been left out of the Argentina squad for their upcoming international. So he needs to get back to playing football if he has any chance of playing in the World Cup next summer. And I'm sure Rasmus Højlund will be thinking the same. But what we'll do, James, is ask Ruben Amorim all of these questions, look ahead to Fulham, see what they can build on from that Arsenal defeat last weekend, and I'm sure plenty more when we hear from him from just after 1:30.
Great stuff, Daniel. Thank you very much for now. Let's ask you that question that Daniel's posing there. There's a number of players, the likes of Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, who are training on their own right now, missing the start of the season. How will they be feeling? Because it doesn't feel like we're very close to any of these deals being done in terms of outgoings. And we know United need these outgoings to materialise if they were to potentially bring more players in.
Yeah, I think what Manchester United are doing, they're staying very strong to their valuation. Their valuation is clearly very, very high. And of course, they're both still what you consider young players, especially Garnacho. And they want the right deal. They've brought in their players that they're incoming, but the outgoing, it looks as if it has to be the right prices. Now, I think as the window goes on, they'll drop what is their ideal price and maybe meet in the middle. So I can see Garnacho going. I can see Jadon Sancho going. Sancho more on loan, I think. I think Garnacho, I think a deal can be done there. And I think it's Manchester United need it. They need to get those players out, and they're very firm that they need to go as well.
So it appears that the majority of United's business is done with more incomings unlikely. If they were to strengthen in one area, would you be looking for a midfielder or a goalkeeper if they can only target one position?
Listen, I think Bayındır, after last week, of course he made a mistake, but I'm not one of those that he made one mistake in the game and it's the end, get rid of him. No, he's a very good goalkeeper. He's proved he's won them games last season when he came in. I think that's not as urgent as a midfielder. I actually think a midfielder right now is more urgent than the goalkeeper. So I'll definitely be looking at midfield, because I think that's the one position that... Look at where Manchester United want to go. They want to be in the Champions League and fighting for titles. Your midfielder is going to be key to that more than your goalkeeper right now.
There's a lot of work for that midfielder to do, playing alongside Bruno Fernandes. Would you expect Benjamin Šeško to start this weekend? How much do you think he'd have benefited from a full week on the training ground with Amorim, and potentially tomorrow or Sunday we had the opportunity to see Mbeumo, Cunha and Šeško start together for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, the more I see Šeško, the more I think he's just got so many good qualities. That's going to add to Mbumo's qualities. It's going to add to Cunha, Bruno Fernandes. I think the hard part is always the first few weeks as a player, and you're trying to get to know your teammates. But the big thing is not just to get to know their qualities. You know, when they'll see you. You know, when you make a run, do they see you or do they delay? You know, and I think he's playing with great players. And Šeško having a week's training, having time with the manager, having time to discuss with his teammates. I'm going to make this movement. I'm going to make this run. Find me. You know, those little discussions that happen in training is what I think is going to benefit Manchester United. Šeško, I think, is going to be ready. I would love to see him start the game now, because I think probably even if he plays 60 minutes, it's going to be better for him than playing, you know, maybe half an hour. I think that's the next step, but that's exciting for Manchester United. Mbumo, Cunha, Bruno Fernandes, Šeško. I think, especially after last week, I thought they were exciting last week, but once they get it right, there's so many goals, there's so much creativity there. I think it's dangerous for most teams when they play Manchester United.
Manchester United are closing on a £17 million deal Royal Antwerp goalkeeper Sanne Lammens. The 23-year-old is viewed as a keeper for the long term and is expected to compete with Andre Onana, whose future has been in question after a series of erratic performances last season. Onana was left out of the United squad for the opening day defeat to Arsenal last weekend following his recovery from a hamstring injury, only to see his replacement, Altay Bayindir, make an error that directly led to Ricardo Calafiore's winning goal despite conjecture over Onana's role under Ruben Amorim going forward. The Cameroon international expects to remain at United beyond the current transfer window, having been made aware that the club have rebuffed inquiries from clubs for his services. United in turn had inquired about Aston Villa's Emi Martinez, but he was too expensive and had discussed Botafogo's John Victor. Lammens, a 6 feet 3 inches Belgium under-21 international, made his debut for Bruges in July 2021 before moving to Antwerp 2 years later, making a first appearance for the club that November in a Champions League defeat to Porto. United will need cover as Onana is likely to miss part of the season due to his involvement in Cameroon's Africa Cup of Nations campaign in December. Meanwhile, Napoli are continuing to push for agreement over a deal for striker Rasmus Højlund. The Italian champions are discussing a loan with obligation to buy the Denmark international. Chelsea target Alejandro Garnacho, Jadon Sancho, Antony and Tyrell Malacia are continuing to train separately from the first-team squad as they await developments on transfers away. Manchester United reportedly asked for an evolving Chelsea star in negotiations over the sale of Alejandro Garnacho to the London club. United have attempted to shift some players off the books who are surplus to requirements this summer. They got Marcus Rashford out on loan to Barcelona, but the likes of Garnacho, Antony, Jadon Sancho and Tyrell Malacia are still at the club. Should they sell each of those players, they should make a decent sum of money to potentially but some new talent. They have also been looking into a midfield signing since improving their attack, but the lack of available funds has hindered their pursuit of Brighton's Carlos Baleba, while Crystal Palace don't want to sell Adam Wharton. But United have looked for a solution which solves both of their problems. They have been negotiating with Chelsea for some time over the potential sale of Garnacho. The Red Devils want £50 million, while their Premier League rivals don't want to pay more than £30 million. But to potentially bring the price down and add a midfield star to their ranks, transfer insider Ben Jacobs has suggested that United asked for Andre Santos. He said on the United stand, "What I can tell you is that when discussions have been ongoing for Alejandro Garnacho to Chelsea, Andre Santos has been spoken about. I don't think it's going to lead anywhere, because Chelsea don't want to sell. That's another player, though, that Manchester United appreciate. It's nothing more than that at this stage." It is unsurprising that Chelsea don't want to lose Santos, after going out on loan to Strasbourg last season, where he scored 10 League One goals and assisted 4 more. He played 4 times in the Club World Cup for the Blues in the summer, assisting once, and came off the bench in this season's Premier League opener.